Hi, and welcome to this episode of John's Model Kit Review. In today's fun model making technique video, we'll be looking at 3 easy ways to mask between the paint colors on your model. These 3 techniques are ones that I have developed for myself over the years. For me, these are the most efficient ways to mask model aircraft. I honestly don't like masking and painting the aircraft, so I want to spend as little time in that step of the process as possible. The 3 techniques that we'll look at in this video include masking with a damp napkin or a paper towel. This is a really nice technique for masking off wheel wells and inside radiator housings and other places that it's kind of difficult to get the shape of the opening correct. This technique allows you to do that very quickly and easily. The next technique we'll look at is using a combination of masking tape and rubber cement or masking fluid. The technique I'll specifically be talking about here is for masking a hard demarcation line around a curved surface like a fuselage. On this model, I use this technique on the white fuselage band around the rear fuselage of the aircraft. The final technique I'll be talking about in this video is masking between the primary paint colors on the aircraft with rolled Silly Putty, or in my case, I use a kneadable eraser. In my technique, I use this to form the boundary between the colors, and once again, I use rubber cement to mask off the majority of the area that we'll be trying to protect. As with any model making technique, these do take practice to perfect. The first masking technique we'll look at is using a damp napkin or paper towel to mask off wheel wells and inside radiator housings. This is a very flexible technique. With this technique, I start off by cutting out a piece of paper that is a little bit oversized for the indented area that I'm trying to mask off. Then I lightly dampen the piece of paper and I use a toothpick to kind of tuck it into the recessed area. If I need to add more paper to get full coverage, I can easily do that. Once the paper dries, it stiffens up a little bit. It tends to hold its shape very well, and it tends to stay in place very nicely throughout the painting and weathering process. Once the painting process is complete, I can easily remove the paper mask with a set of tweezers or a razor blade or a toothpick if necessary. The next masking technique we'll look at is the technique that I used to protect the white nose area of this Eduard Fw190 A series. That was actually the first color that I painted. Once the color is applied, I take a very thin strip of masking tape. Specifically, I'm talking about a millimeter wide or less, and I wrap that carefully around the fuselage along the seam on both sides of the area that I want to protect, and then I cover the middle of the area with some masking fluid, or in my case, rubber cement. Using a very thin piece of tape allows it to curve around the compound curves of the fuselage and give a very nice demarcation line. The nice thing about using the rubber cement is if it gets outside the tape lines, you can very easily just let it dry and then just use a toothpick to kind of draw it back to the tape line. So you get a very nice clean line. When I apply the rubber cement on smaller areas like this, I do not use the big applicator brush that comes with the rubber cement. I use either a standard Q-tip or a fine Q-tip, and that allows me to apply the rubber cement much more accurately. Once the rubber cement dries, it is ready for paint. This kit is Eduard's Bf109F in 1/48 scale. After marking out the fuselage band, I sprayed the RLM 79 brown over the top of the aircraft, and then it was time to mask off for the RLM 78 underside blue. To mask off larger areas like this, I use a kneadable eraser, and I roll it very thinly into snakes, and then I place that along the demarcation line between the colors. Once all my demarcation lines are applied, then I go back and use a heavy coat of rubber cement on the areas of paint that I want to protect. For larger areas, I sometimes use the applicator brush that comes with the rubber cement, and I also use a combination of the normal size Q-tips and finer Q-tips in smaller corners and areas that are more difficult to get to with the applicator. This step can be a little bit tricky, especially when the bottle of rubber cement is brand new. It tends to be a little bit runnier when it's brand new, and you just want to make sure that you apply the rubber cement over a protected area. The coat of rubber cement will thin as it dries, And once it's completely dried, it should look like a messy clear coat. Again, the beauty of this method is that if you accidentally color outside the lines, you can let the rubber cement dry and then go back and remove the overage with a toothpick, or you can simply peel it back a little bit with your thumb to correct the demarcation line. What I have found with this method is that it is the best at protecting the underlying color coat. I've never had it interact negatively with the acrylic paints that I use, and I like the semi-soft demarcation line that it leaves between the colors. Once all the color coats are applied, the masking can be removed, and that is easily done by just gently pulling your thumb along the edge of the rubber cement, and it just rolls up very nicely. When you're removing the mask, you just want to take your time and make sure that you've removed all these smaller pieces of rubber cement from little corners and edges where it might stick. In conclusion, we've looked at 3 different masking techniques that I use on almost every aircraft build that I do. In each case, these techniques allow me to get a great result with minimal effort. And honestly, I wish I knew these 3 techniques when I first started airbrushing my model kits many years ago. Well, I'd love to know what you guys think. If you have different techniques that you use, please feel free to discuss those in the comment section below. As always, I hope you found this video entertaining and informative. And until next time, model on.